Dom comes from the Latin domus, house, and dominus, master, and the two are indeed related. In the Bible, King Ahasuerus, angered by his queen's disobedience, proclaims that every man is to be master of his own house, and in the Roman Empire no one doubted that this was how it was meant to be. A domain is the area where a person has authority or is dominant, but we no longer think of a house as the domain of a single dominant member of a family. Dominion, 1. An area over which one rules, domain. 2. Supreme authority. The Roman Empire had dominion over the entire Mediterranean, which the Romans called Mare Nostrum, our sea. The ruler of a region has dominion over it, and the area itself may be called the ruler's dominion. In the days of the British Empire, England had dominion over many countries throughout the world. Though Canada has been quite independent of Great Britain since the 19th century, it was generally referred to as the Dominion of Canada in official documents until at least the 1950s. The word has an old-fashioned sound today, and probably shows up in history books, historical novels, and fantasy video games more often than in discussions of modern nations. Predominant, greater in importance, strength, influence, or authority. The predominant color of the desert landscape was a rusty brown. Something predominant stands out above all the rest. The predominant theme in an essay is the one that predominates, the main idea that the writer wants to express. Notice the difference between the adjective and the verb. Be sure not to spell the adjective with an ate ending. The word is widely used in many fields. For example, the predominant language of Switzerland is German, the predominant cause of obesity in children is a bad diet, and your predominant reason for wanting a larger vocabulary may be to simply be a better educated person, though the positive effects of a large vocabulary on one's romantic life are well known. Domineering, tending to control the behavior of others in a bossy manner. His mother was a domineering type, and not even his stepfather dared do anything without her permission. To be domineering is to behave like a lord. The word lordly doesn't express quite the same thing. Someone who tells you what you can wear or what friends you can spend time with could be called domineering, so could someone who always decides what you're going to do with your free time. Those of us who grow up with a domineering parent usually flee as soon as we're old enough. Domination, 1. Supremacy or power over another. 2. The exercise of governing or controlling influence. The region was under the domination of a single nation, even though it hadn't yet invaded its neighbors. Domination may sound like something that's achieved by military force. The total domination of Europe, for example, has never been achieved. The Roman Empire could never fully dominate the northern Germanic tribes. Napoleon couldn't conquer Spain, and although Adolf Hitler was briefly dominant over most of the continent, he never managed to overpower England. But the word's earliest appearances don't necessarily involve physical force. Chaucer, for instance, speaks of a mind's domination by strong drink. So we may observe that a great tennis player has continued his domination of the world's courts this season, or that the domination of popular music by rock and roll was obvious by the end of the 1950s. Omni comes from the Latin word omnis, meaning all. So in English words, omni can mean in all ways, in all places, or without limits. An omnidirectional antenna, for example, is one that receives or sends radio waves equally well in all directions. And omni by itself has been used repeatedly as a brand name for things as different as a hotel chain and a science magazine. Omnivore, an animal that eats both plants and other animals. If we're all natural omnivores, she kept asking herself, then why wouldn't her toddler eat anything but cashews and peanut butter until the age of 4? Human beings seem to be classic omnivores. Originally living as hunter-gatherers, we hunted and fished when possible, but also gathered nuts, berries, fruits, seeds, and roots for much of our diet. We're physically well suited for both tasks, our hands are perfect for picking things, and our build is ideal for running down even the fastest game animals because of our great stamina. Some 10,000 years ago humans began practicing agriculture involving both animals and plants. The other omnivorous mammals include chimpanzees, pigs, possums, porcupines, bears, raccoons, skunks, chipmunks, mice and rats, and skunks. But even many mammals classed as carnivorous (CVOR) turn out to be capable of shifting to plant foods when necessary. Omnipotent, having complete or unlimited power, all-powerful. What really scares these men is the nightmare of an omnipotent state, and they think that with their guns they'll be able to keep the government's forces at bay when the time comes. If you know that potens means power in Latin, see pot, it's not hard to guess the meaning of omnipotent. In Christian services and prayers, the Latin omnipotens is translated as almighty and always applied to God. But omnipotence in a government or ruler is naturally a bit scary. As a British lord observed a century ago, power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So democracies do their best to make omnipotence impossible. On the bus of or including many things. Eager to go home for vacation, Senate leaders assembled an omnibus bill to tie up the loose ends on dozens of unrelated projects. In Latin, omnibus means for all. So an omnibus bill in Congress packages several measures together. An omnibus survey may poll the public on a wide range of issues, and an omnibus edition of a writer's stories may bring together just about all of them. As a noun, omnibus used to mean a large vehicle for public transportation, that is, for all who could pay the fare, but around 1900 the word began to be shortened to simply bus.